Our last artwork for today is a piece of Mycenaean pottery. Here it is. It's called the Warrior's Vase. Now you might see it defined or titled the Warrior Vase, a single warrior, or Warrior's Vase, plural warriors. And it's not, it's the basketball team, the Warriors. Here we have a vase that has been built out of clay and fired or burned to preserve its shape, and on it we have soldiers or warriors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on one side, and they all face the same direction, and they look as if they're moving forward, perhaps like a march or marching forward. Each of them carries with their left hand a shield, so it's behind them. You see that? So they're walking this way, and their left hands are holding a shield. It's behind their bodies. And then with their right, they have resting on their shoulders a spear. And then attached to their spear is their sack of belongings. You see that? They're all outfitted in military gear. They have greaves, those shield guards, and there is no other real distinction between them. They all look very similar, don't they? This one here, though, notice that? His helmet's slightly different. He's got some bands of white. Does that mark his rank? Perhaps. There's one more figure here. And I'm going to turn the vase so that we can see her a little better. Here she is. It's a woman. And what's she doing? She's not walking with them. She's waving goodbye. Okay, so we got soldiers marching off to war and a woman waving goodbye. Now, I say this is built of terracotta. It's been reassembled from pieces. And remember, when we look at these types of things, we have to understand what is missing as well. To help us, the art restoration only includes the portions of the original vase, and they didn't fill it in, or paint, I should say. They didn't fill in the decoration. They didn't paint the missing decoration. Instead, they keep these large blank panels in order to help you understand what's missing and what is the original vase. Does that make sense? Sometimes students ask me, well, why do sometimes they paint what's missing, and why do they sometimes leave it blank like this? It's really to the discretion of whoever owns this vase and what kind of restoration style or invasion or manipulation of the original material they're willing to do. Okay, look at that. This is another view. The handles on either side are made in the shape of goat or ram's heads, and the horns of the rams make up the loops of the handle. The shape of this vase, it's open at the top and then it narrows in at the bottom. This type of vase shape is called a crater. Heads up, the Greeks, they love pottery so much that they name everything about a pot. And we still use all of their terms today to describe art pottery pre-Greek and post-Greek. So looking at this, we're going to use the Greek word for this shape, which is crater. A crater is a wide-mouthed bowl used for mixing wine and water. What? Yes, so people made wine back then, but it was seen as uncivilized to drink wine without diluting it. Oh, you're so crass. You drink wine straight. Instead, it was preferred to dilute it with water, and you would do it in these large crater bowls. Think of it like a punch bowl. And then after you would dump your wine and dump your water and mix it up, you would serve it into smaller cups. So these types of crater bowls would typically be put out at a gathering. And the wine, the water mix up, and then everybody would have their individual cup, and then they would pour it in, like a punch bowl, right? These types of craters, these wide mouth vessels, would be decorated with scenes that would then help encourage conversation. Because just like you do now, you struggle in social situations, you're like super awkward. You could be at the punch bowl and then be like, oh, look at this scene here. Let's talk about this. So we have this line of soldiers, this woman here. This must have been something on topic for the Mycenaeans, which makes sense. I just told you a million times that they're warlike warlords, right? So yeah, they're used to sending soldiers off, and the women stay behind and wave and wait for them to come back, or wait for their bodies to be returned, or wait for news that they were lost at sea. This decorative element, the warrior vase's decorative element, is called a frieze. I know, it's not freeze like cold, but it's pronounced frieze. F-R-E-I-Z-E, a frieze. Any sculpted or painted band of decoration is called a frieze. I'm introducing it now here, but we saw it on the Minoan harvester vase. The decorative sculpted band of those young men around the harvester vase, that's also a frieze. So here the frieze is of these soldiers and the woman waving goodbye. And, well, what does it say about their culture? What does it say about their sense of individuality, of their purpose in life? How about warlike? Violent? How about military campaigns define the culture? There's restricted gender roles between men and women. There's not an emphasis on the individual. Instead, there is an emphasis on conformity, united together, rather than individual and apart. Interesting. This is so interesting that I'm probably going to put it as a question on your midterm. What? Okay, I'm giving you a heads up right now. I'm going to be asking you for a comparison of the harvester vase by the Minoans with the warrior vase for the Mycenaeans. Let's just do it now, just for practice, because I'm gonna put it on the exam. I usually put this slide up in class, and then I want us to do a discussion of what you see. What do you see that's similar? What do you see that's different? I'm gonna tell you that I don't want you to tell me one is made of stone, one is made of clay. I don't care about that. I don't want you to tell me that one of them is really small and one of them is really big. No. I want you to talk about what kind of images do you see? We see young men grouped together walking in the same direction, but they are totally different. And what about them? Or what is it about them that is different? How are the men of the harvester vase depicted? How is it different than what we see in the warrior's vase? What does it say about Minoan culture? What does it say about Mycenaean culture? I'm going to help you out by making this a discussion board question. And you guys can work out your ideas in the discussion boards through your post, just as you would in class when I would ask those questions, and then you would respond, and then you'd get to hear the benefit of your other fellow smart students. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions about it, though. I'm going to end this week's lecture by saying that the Mycenaeans will fall. I said it before, they stretch their boundaries too far, too wide, and they lose control of their own homeland. What? I know. It's unfathomable, right? So they stretch their boundaries so far that they need to maintain these far off reaches that they lose control of their own citadels. What we see is, based on the archaeological record, is that citadels start to become more heavily fortified, and this is a sign of attack from the interior spaces. So who is attacking? The largest consensus, not everybody's going to agree because historians love to argue, but the largest consensus is that there was an invasion from the north. And the people from the north had started coming in as hired swords, mercenaries, or labor forces, because as the Mycenaeans kept sending their young men off onto these battles and dying, they needed a new flood of young blood in the Mycenaean world. So they were hiring these young men from the north to become workers and to become mercenary soldiers. They kept coming and then staying and then wanting the land for themselves. What we think happened was, what broke this reign was an eventual poor choice of trying to control the city of Troy. The reason that the Mycenaeans most likely wanted to attack Troy is because Troy was a port city. It is located on the Aegean Sea, but also has easy access to the interior of the Anatolian Peninsula, and therefore has easy access to lots of wealth, lots of money, lots of natural resources. And so money is just pouring in and out of Troy. And the Mycenaeans want in on the action. So they focus all their attention and they leave the citadels vulnerable. And then it leads to the eventual collapse. What's going to happen next week? Well, after the collapse of the Mycenaeans, there's a dark age. What? Yeah. History in the Aegean goes dark. We don't hear anything about them anymore. They're just gone. Just as the Minoans disappeared, the Mycenaeans disappear. And then we have records from Egypt and the Near East going like, I don't know, they're not coming anymore. There's no boats. We sent some people out there and there's like barely anybody at the old headquarters on the other side of the ocean. So I don't know what to tell you. We're going to come back next week with the culture that comes out of this period of darkness. The Greeks. Have a good rest of your week. I'm sorry for the late post. See you next week. Bye.